Welcome to the Way to Go podcast. Bill McMinn along with Steve Sargent. Glad you're here, buddy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Always good to have you.
Likewise. So, glad to be here.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's really, really, really awesome. So I was glad to see you at the Concerts of Prayer too the other week. That was really cool.
And I want to take the time out to thank the Eagleville Bible Church for being such great host.
Oh, we're glad to do it.
How many years now has it been here? Maybe 4, maybe, I don't know. How many years?
Oh my goodness. I mean, we've been doing it here has been quite a few because Steve did it for when he was on the board for quite a few years, 6.
It's been
more.
Just a really, really great experience.
Yeah.
The atmosphere is great. It's good to come together with so many people from across the
county. Long as we can fit it, I mean, they're always welcome to come. And you're on the board, so I mean, you know that, and you can pass it along. I've told Ryan that too. You know, as long as you guys want to use it, I mean, we're always going to be open to hosting it.
That's great.
So,
and the food, might I add?
Yeah,
the breakfast was really good.
It's really good.
Really good.
I know. I wish I had more time to eat it. Talking to people so much, like, man, I wish I could spend a little bit more time eating this food because it is actually pretty good. But one of the things I want to talk about was anxiety because it's such a thing. You know, you and I are both, you know, well along in years. You know, say we're not spring chickens anymore, right?
Chronologically advanced.
Chronologically advanced, wise. You hear so much about mental health issues and anxiety today. All the time. I mean, from kids talk about it all the time. Well, you know, I have mental health issues or I have anxiety and you're creating anxiety. And you think of these men. I mean, there's men, young men, and well, I have anxiety. I have. And I don't remember ever hearing about any. I would hear about nervous breakdown sometimes. Like somebody might have a nervous breakdown. Like I would hear about that on occasion, but I never heard such talk of everyone being so worried about how they felt or as they are today.
Yeah, it is a different day than it was like when I was coming up. And not to say that some people didn't have issues, mental health issues. They are more aware of them nowadays, and everyone just, here's what I look at it like. I think according to how they diagnose you, I know I probably have something to, I mean, for real. If you follow the formula that's used today, Everyone sure I do. Yeah. It's something.
Right.
But to make it a crutch in your life, that's a whole different level.
Right.
And I always use as an example, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Ray about Ray Charles.
I don't know if I did.
Well, you know, he was, Jamie Foxx played him, you know, as an adult at least. He wasn't born blind. He probably was like 10 years old when he got glaucoma. He lost his sight. And it went gradually, probably over 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Meanwhile, his mom told him, and now you're talking back in probably the 40s or something, which is almost like primitive times nowadays. Don't let anybody make a cripple out of you. Right. Because you can't see doesn't mean you can't learn how to live, like how to take care of yourself.
Right.
So she sent him away to a school where he learned how to function, you know, read Braille, things of that nature. Even how do you fold your money.
Right.
So, you know, like in your wallet or in your pocket, what a 5 is or a 1 or a 20, there's a way they do all of that and how to get around it. They didn't have, like nowadays you go to a lot of elevators and it's in Braille, the numbers, the floors. There was none of that then.
Right.
But yet he survived, and obviously he was a musician and an entertainer and very successful eventually, but he learned how to play, what have you, when he was blind.
Right.
Because he listened to what his mother said. And I think with all of the challenges they label us with nowadays, it shouldn't serve as, because you have whatever mental maybe or emotional diagnosis, you cannot function.
Right.
You are therefore like done, go sit down, go home and sit down and call it a day. That's what I don't agree with.
I would say that not only is it sometimes becoming a crutch, it's becoming, and probably kind of along the way you mean it too, an excuse.
Yeah.
Is becoming an excuse to not get out in class, an excuse to stay in your house, an excuse to not engage, an excuse to, well, I can't, you know, because I have this kind of stuff. I grew up on a sink or swim day. I mean, you didn't have time to be thinking about this stuff. There was no such thing as social media, which was probably way better. There were plenty of issues to think about just in your normal human relationships with the kids you get in fights with walking up and down the street and everything else, who became your friends later in life, actually. But you would have all kinds of stuff where, there's a lot of stuff to think about, but we didn't have time to think about that kind of stuff. It was a matter of, no, you got to get out and work. You've got to help support your family. You got bills. There's bills to pay. This is about survival. I like those days. Like, I like those days where we weren't so affluent that we had time to second guess and question everything and freak ourselves out. Today's kids have to grow up and wonder, boys, am I really a boy? Girls, am I really a girl? Maybe I'm a boy. I don't really know. That, honest to goodness, like, that would have never been a consideration unless somebody was like really out there.
Oh yeah.
Not even a consideration at all. Of course you're a boy. Look at yourself. You see in a mirror. It's not hard to know if you're a boy or not. And I have a way, by the way, to just settle this whole debate in this country. Just forget about the genders and all that stuff. Just have their bathroom, boy parts bathroom, girl parts bathroom. I don't care what you think your gender is. Boy parts sports, girl parts sports. Doesn't matter what your gender is. If you have girl parts, this is your sport. If you have boy parts, this is your sports. How about that?
Yeah.
Right? Just go by the plumbing. You know what I'm saying? The plumbing dictates, where you're going to go to the bathroom, because that would just iron all of it out. Then you wouldn't have all these debates. Like, we're not talking about your gender.
Right.
We're talking about this urinal is here for boy plumbing stuff. Not girl plumbing stuff, right?
Yeah.
So if that's your plumbing, go there.
Yeah,
I was just even it out.
In the simple world, that makes sense.
Right.
We have unfortunately turned to a not so simple society anymore. Right. And it makes me feel old. I will tell you that. It really does make me feel old. Because you hear my parents, especially my dad, who was old enough to be my grandfather, the generation they grew up in versus the one I grew up in.
Right.
That was, so different from then and now, and then now from where I came from and what it is like now. But the main thing is people are people.
Right.
And I don't think really we're all products of how we were raised.
Right.
Like, we may be raised in a certain environment with a certain belief or not. And that sticks with you. You can determine to follow that or not, especially as you get older. But we are all products of that.
Right.
I think that people need to realize that there's a purpose in our life. God purpose in our life, and regardless of how we came here, or what is it? That a lawnmower?
Lawnmower. Yeah. Steve's hearing the lawnmower like hit the side of the building. He
I
goes
know
along,
what that was like. Okay.
The ephes is broken along the base of the building. I'm like, yeah, well, you
guys are used to that. In the city, that's a different sound.
That's right.
So if people would take to learn, and we don't all teach this to our children, and to walk into the calling where God has made you or called you to, even if you were here, like some people don't know who their parents are, they were adopted or in foster care, etc. They can make some of the greatest leaders and what have you in our world.
Right.
I use as an example Dave Thomas. Remember Dave Thomas from Wendy's?
Okay.
Now he was a very successful businessman. He was one of the richest men in the world when he passed. He never knew who his parents were.
Right.
And he grew up in a bunch of foster homes. His story is just unbelievable. And that's why Wendy's is huge into the adoption program.
Right.
Because of how he lived. But look what he turned out to be.
Right.
So he had no call as to why his mom left him or who his dad was. He had nothing to do with any of that. And I'm sure he suffered in some ways.
Right.
And he talks about as a child how one of his foster fathers really ridiculed him because every time he get a job, he'd get fired.
Right.
Now, he was only like a little kid, like 10 or 11. Right. And his foster dad told him, I guess I'm going to have to take care of you the rest of your life because every time you get a job, you get fired. And it offended him. Right. So he made up in his mind, I'm never getting fired again.
Right.
If I had to go to work early or stay late, I'm never getting fired again. And it was that, even though it was a negative, like what the dad said to him, he turned it into a positive. Right. And look at the success he enjoyed. Right. I think we can still do that.
Yeah, I think we have too much time on our hands. I mean, they were talking about reparations in San Francisco, out in California. So I'm sure you read some of that articles. But one thing
I was thinking about moving out there if they're going to do that.
Yeah, go ahead. If they're giving you millions of dollars, get out there, Steve.
Give me my check.
Send me a postcard, dude. But one thing that I saw was like they wanted an apology for something Ronald Reagan said. I didn't read what Ronald Reagan said, so I wasn't sure what it was. But I'm like, this is where society has too much time on our hands. When we have enough time to be going back years ago, let's say 40, 50 years ago, and we're worried about what Ronald Reagan said and we want an apology for it, I'm saying we got too much time on our hands. When we can sit here and argue about, well, I don't know, is it offensive to say Mother's Day? Is it offensive to say Father's Day? You got too much time on your hands. You need to get busy living, get a job, be productive. Stop worrying about like every little thing. Like, no wonder we have anxiety.
That's true.
I mean, they're worried about every little thing that when we were growing up, we didn't have to think about, hey, are the bills going to get paid? And we're going to worry about that kind of stuff. And going through college and being productive and getting married and that's a weird thinking about. I wasn't thinking about just myself or am I worried? Yeah, some of your tests were scary. You just took the test like that was like normal to us, right? I remember one guy describing ADHD. I've got this ADD stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, tell me what it looks like. So he described himself, like, well, this is what it is, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, you just described every day of my life. I've gotten along just fine. That's like, yeah, that sounds like me, man. My brain jumps around like,
oh boy.
You know what I mean?
Me
A squirrel,
too.
branch to branch to branch to branch. My mind is how my brain works. I've never thought to diagnose it. I've gotten a lot done with that jumpy around brain of mine.
That's right. Right. Because I've been told that too. Like, oh, you must have ADHD. Maybe I do.
Right. I know.
But
like,
I still
Steve,
function.
join the club.
Seriously. I think all of us, according to the way it's diagnosed, have something.
Right.
All of us do.
Right.
But now the choice is on us. Like, it wasn't like you're not born a winner or a loser. Right. You're born a chooser.
Right. Oh,
and I just, honest to God, believe that.
Steve, what a great comment.
Haven't bumped off one in a minute. So.
That's right, exactly, man.
And that's the truth, because we
all
all
born a winner or loser. I'm born a chooser.
Yeah, and we all have stories of maybe anxiety or other things. And if you need to get counseling, I'm not against that. That's great. Right. Those type of things, follow through with it. But don't allow those maybe negative diagnoses or things that we're labeled with hinder us from what we're supposed to be doing.
Or limit us, right?
Yes.
You're limited because you have this diagnosis or things. No, we have to excel as much as we can. Yeah. And I do believe, by the way, were people mentally ill in my day? Yeah. There was a guy who used to come be a peeping Tom on our property. He had so many DUIs. He wore girl socks and stuff like that, rode a bicycle because he wasn't allowed to drive a car anymore. He was on some dirt road where we were on. He lived all by himself. He had problems. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, we definitely encountered people with problems. I'm not saying that we didn't. That was part of life too. When I was in college mowing a lawn, somebody's coming, spitting all over the place, kicking me off the property. They don't even own it. Somebody was homeless and things like that. We encountered that stuff, sure. Right. Nothing like today. Everyone and their brother, it just seems like you're talking about anxiety. Well, okay. Well, yeah, people have been anxious. Anxiety's been a thing. Jesus Christ told his disciples to fear not, right? Believe, have faith. So it says in Philippians 4:6, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And that's a great verse because it says, don't be anxious about anything. Pray about it. And with thanksgiving, appreciate what you have.
That's right. That's right.
Stop focusing on what you don't have.
Yep. We focus on sometimes the wrong things, and sometimes we don't know how to focus on anything else. Right. And it may be the atmosphere, because we have a tendency to focus on whatever is going on in our environment. You might need to look to another environment.
Right.
Focus. Let's say if you're with a group and all that they deal with is negativity, you need to deal with a group that's not negative like that, because that's how you're going to become.
Right.
Or where you're going. I always use as an illustration, if you're in Ashtabula and you're trying to get to Cleveland, but you're hanging out with a bunch of people who are trying to get to Erie. Right. They're two opposite directions.
Right.
You can't go in reality, to Cleveland through Erie.
Yeah, you're going to be influenced by the people you're around.
Way out of the way. So let's create that atmosphere where things are positive and you look at things positive. I walked into the hospital. I was on visitation once for an elderly woman who attended our church. She'd had a knee replacement, and I went to check on her. Leaving that room, walked by, down the hall, and I saw a family that I knew from town, and I stopped in, and the mom was in there. She's an elderly woman. She'd been diagnosed with cancer, and it was at whatever level that there was nothing they could do. They'd given her just weeks to live.
Right.
She handled it with such grace. Like, she said, well, Steve, this is it. And I thought, like, she mentioned, this is it, and I'm getting ready to get discharged, you know, come home or what, because she looked fine.
Right.
And then she explained to me she'd been diagnosed with cancer. The doctor only gave her a certain time to live, and she said, I'm going home to be with Jesus. And she handled it like, I'm getting ready to graduate.
Right.
Or I'm getting ready to go off to college, or something that you look forward to. And I know we all can't always look at it like that and maybe feel that way about it, but I'm telling you, that day, that time, that lady inspired me like you would not believe.
Right.
Because she's at the end, and even though we know that we believe in Christ, we follow Christ, heaven's our reward, we're going to spend eternity in heaven, you know, the dying process is not something we all look forward to.
I don't. No, I don't. I definitely don't.
It's a scary thing because we've never died, right? But the way she handled it, and even though could be a negative diagnosis, in her case, it was to her a just reward that she was waiting on.
That's an interesting way to put it, as a just reward. Yeah. You know, this is something that, hey, I've earned this. I've earned this trip to heaven. Yep. Not that you were in heaven. Don't.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I don't need to hear the letters. Bill said you earned your way to heaven. No, you know what I'm saying. But you've kind of like, you've lived for the Lord. You're going to go to heaven. And so she kind of looked at it as a positive thing. And where I guess in our day, we didn't magnify being worried as much. We didn't make it, oh, you're worried. Oh, no. You know, it would just be, well, that's just, you were worried about it. You got through it. You went and took your tests, and you were a little bit apprehensive about it. You prayed about it. You went and did the best you could, and that was it. I mean, it wasn't like a big deal to us. And I think today, some of the things that really just weren't a big deal to us, we're making a big deal. And the more we make it a big deal, the more people freak out about it. Right. And the more they talk about it, the more you talk about it, the more you think about it. It's kind of like sitting around wondering all day, am I crazy? Am I crazy? Maybe I'm crazy. This is stuff like I used to think. I'm not picking on people. I'm saying, I used to wonder about that too. I'm like, are you going to go crazy someday? And I'm like, well, probably you thinking about it. Number one, it's not going to help. But number two, it probably means you're not. You know what I'm saying? Because if you are, you probably wouldn't be thinking about it. So let's put it to rest. And that was the end of it. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not going to sit here and think about this all day.
That's right.
You know, so when you're young, you think about a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
That's right. And part of our thinking is, like you said, we have all of these things in front of us, right? Social media, television, etc., to remind us of these things that sometimes we shouldn't be thinking about. It's before us all the time. So you have to go out of your way, not to let that overwhelm you or consume you. Think on the good things, the positive things, the hope we have in Christ Jesus, and things of that nature. Right. And it'll change our behavior.
Right. I agree. I think that like heart-burning stress kind of anxiety, like we all feel like sometimes that pain in our heart because, and I think social media brings that out sometimes.
It can.
Because people say, well, I didn't get to go there, or I didn't get invited to that, or how come they didn't like my stuff? Or it just accentuates like where you're at. Like, well, how come they're not really, follow me? And it's just that kind of stuff. You got to stop thinking about that. I think some of these issues are what we dwell on. Where you're happy with your gold sneakers, man. Yeah. You got them for $20. Yep. You're happy about it. Mm-hmm. I'm happy with my life. My wife and I, we were talking about it the other day. Jerry said, if I won $1 billion, I wouldn't move. If I had $1 billion, I still wouldn't move. I wouldn't leave where I live.
I'm not going to say that.
I'd still stay where I'm at.
I probably would, but you see my house a mile away. I'd still be there.
Well, I don't. If you do win $1 billion, invite me to your new house. I want to see it. No, but I understand what she's saying. She's happy. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're happy. We're getting ready. We have to trade her car, and we don't even really want to, but it's got so many miles on it. Like, we take trips. We're just wondering, like, how 192,000. Wow. So, and it's 10 years old. It still looks great. Like, we would just keep driving. Like, we just don't feel like it's great. We still have to get another one, but we kind of hate it because, I've had my truck 9 years. The same thing. I just get a vehicle. I just hold on to it, and I don't. You're happy, but if you're happy, you're happy. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you have with your stuff or whatever it is, and you're just happy with it, and you're thanking God for it, you're just thankful, man. Yeah, you're thankful to be alive. You're thankful for everything He does. To me, that's helps you to overcome that anxiety. I'm just grateful. Right. I live a life of gratitude. Yeah. Right.
And everything, give thanks. And when we look at it, like you just mentioned, it may not change the stuff around us, right? But it'll change us.
Change us.
It change us. Because I can't, like, today's a nice day outside. Right. It's sunny and nice temperature. And there's days it's like, oh, man, it's cold, windy. Right. You don't even feel like getting out of bed.
Right.
But you know what? I'm like, okay, so I can't go outside and do what I do outside. I can't mow the lawn. I can't walk, Tannery Hill and those things that I like to do outside today. But I'm going to do something positive inside today.
Right.
That, and knowing, in spite of what it looks like outside, it's not going to be like that forever outside.
Right, right.
Even those days we get rain for 4 or 5 days in a row, it's going to end after a while.
Right.
And the sun's going to come
It's your attitude. I just think it's your attitude and how you handle things. And you can obsess on all the negatives or you can appreciate the positives.
Right.
I think sometimes we just don't appreciate, Mark and I had this conversation the other day, sometimes even in marriage, where one spouse will pick on somebody for this little thing, I'm going to pick on you. I'm going to get all upset because of this little thing and forgetting, look at everything they're doing to help you. Look at all the love they've shown to you. Look at all, but we just can't get over something. I don't know. It's your attitude.
I heard a great pastor in Michigan was preaching, and he said he and his wife went on a vacation to Hawaii, and they're on the beach. And there's a guy who appears to be homeless. He looks like he's homeless. He has a cart with like a blanket and what have you in it. And he comes over to a trash can that was close to them, rumbles through the trash, finds a Burger King bag, opens it up, and there was a half-eaten burger in it. Now he takes the burger, a napkin that was in there, wiped the ketchup and stuff off of it, and there was some half-eaten French fries. He's going to eat the burger and the French fries, but before he ate it, he bowed his head and he prayed. Now for every visual thing that you can think of, he appears to be homeless.
Right.
He goes through the trash, gets a Burger King burger, which may not be the best thing to eat anyway, let alone in the trash, half eaten, wipes off the ketchup or what, but before he ate it, he gave thanks.
Right. So that's
he
the
gave
attitude.
thanks. And he said he felt like, what am I? The things you complain about.
Right.
Here's a guy who finds his dinner or lunch or whatever it is from the trash, and it's half eaten.
Right.
And he thanks God before he eats it.
Right.
Maybe it's because he was in Hawaii.
Right. I'm just saying, man, I'm thankful for all the time, and I'm glad to be alive. My dad was not alive at my age. My grandfather was not alive at my age on my dad's side. Wow. I'm still alive, and I'm just grateful. I get to see my grandson and play with him. I'm just thankful. I'm happy about these things. I try not to let the other things. Sometimes, Mark knows. Sometimes things will get you down, or we'll talk, or some things will get Mark down too. Sometimes we do get discouraged. I'm not saying we don't, but you overcome. I'm saying you overcome it, and you overcome it with prayer. You overcome it. I'm really big. God's just kind of been pointing that out. You want power. You want power on Sunday morning, you pray. Yeah. You want power in life, you pray. That's how it is. So don't be, guys, you don't even need to worry. All you need to do is come to me. I got it. I got this. I got this. It's okay. Just don't worry about that stuff. You just come to me and pray. And I think if we had more people praying and come to God, you'd have a lot less of the other problems, right?
I was talking, telling the people at the church the other day, the Lord impressed upon me the other day, and it said, ask me a question. When was the last time I let you down? Wow, man. Right. And I'm thinking because you get anxious or worried over certain issues and things. And that question just changed my attitude. Right. Oh, man. I tell you, you talking about a winner, I support a winner in sports, especially football. But the track record that Jesus Christ has in our life is unmatched. Yeah. That's amazing. Our worst day, our failures, our own personal failures, shortcomings, and all that other stuff we can think of negatively about ourselves. He's right there. Right. He didn't say, that's it. I'm tired of you. I'm not going to have anything else to do with you. You are crazy. Right. He stuck with us and still works with us and gives us grace and strength. Our worst days, we go to bed, you wake up the next day, and my goodness, I don't know how I managed to feel better, but you do. He keeps doing that. He sustains. He sustains. Yes. Yeah. Man. There's a lot to this world. There's a lot to this life. I think sometimes, again, it just depends on what we're allowing ourselves to get caught up in. And a lot of times it's the petty things. Petty things can get magnified and look like big things. And we can stress about these things without realizing, no, that's just put the magnifying glass away. That's just a little thing. Right. Keep little things. Focus on the main things. Main things is, hey, God's here. He's got you. Serve people. Love people.
do the right thing. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
That's what it is. Well, we appreciate you tuning in. Steve, I appreciate you being here
Thank
too
you.
with us, man.
Thank
It's
you.
always a pleasure. I hope you guys all have a great and a blessed week.